I've wanted to make my own video and breakdown of the boys' comics for a while, because I, unlike a lot of people I've seen, actually really enjoy the boys' comics and find them genuinely good. So this video is kind of going to be my thoughts on the comics and what I think they did right and what I think they did wrong. I'm going to separate this video into a few different sections, so obvious spoilers for the comics ahead, and timestamps for each section will be in the description below. The story is set in a world where superheroes are known as supes, and they're corrupted by their celebrity status, and often use that to engage in reckless, immoral, or just downright degenerate behavior. To keep them in check, a CIA squad known as the Boys, led by Billy Butcher, is formed. Billy has a personal vendetta against supes because Homelander raped Billy's wife, and she died giving birth to the child, and from that, Butcher has vowed to kill all supes. But especially Homelander. The team includes Huey Campbell, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and the Female. Their mission is to monitor, expose, and if necessary, eliminate rogue superheroes. Huey's recruited by Butcher after learning that a superhero, A-Train, killed Huey's girlfriend, so Butcher sees Huey and decides to bring him in for help and as a sort of contingency plan for himself. Throughout the series, Huey starts dating Starlight, and they take out supes, and Huey gets revenge on A-Train by killing him. At the end of the series, Homelander takes over the White House and leads a whole army of supes, who are killed by V seeking missiles, and it's revealed that Black Noir in the comics is a clone of Homelander, and the one that really did the bad things, including raping Butcher's wife, and Homelander was actually just framed. Homelander and Noir get into a fight before Noir ends up just killing Homelander, and then Butcher kills Noir as revenge for Becca. But Butcher doesn't just stop there. Seeing as his hatred for supes runs so deep, he decides to eliminate all supes in the world, as well as anyone exposed to them. So he goes and starts a killing spree of the other members of the Boys, not out of a random, just haha, spur of the moment thing, but rather because Butcher knows they will try and stop him. They're the only ones that could if he tries to go through his plan. Finally goes to enact the final part of his plan, before getting attacked by Huey, Huey almost gets himself killed, but Butcher still saves Huey with a little bit of humanity he has left, but in doing so, both of them fall, and Butcher ends up getting paralyzed. And in this moment, he uses that to trick Huey into killing him, and finally end the whole thing once and for all. And the story ends years later with Huey having moved on and now living happily ever after with Annie. I really like how Butcher and Huey's relationship is, and how, while an asshole, Butcher still sees Huey as a genuine good person, and knows he's the only one who can talk some sense into him or stop him if needed. I also like the fact that Homelander still acts like a regular person every once in a while, like the aforementioned singing in the hallway, or getting pissed at prank calls and whatnot. I also feel like Huey and Starlight's relationship is done much better than in the show, and yes, it does have its faults, and the writing can feel a bit iffy at times. I think it's handled well, and they both have appropriate responses to how things are going, and it seems to tackle how complicated those things can be a lot better than the show does. Not that the show doesn't tackle those things or do them well, I just think that the comic does a better job at it. I also feel like the humor sticks to the landing pretty much every time, regardless of how edgy it may be. And the entire final act of the comic was just awesome. The twist wasn't really random and made sense. There was a lot of foreshadowing to it as far back as the beginning of the series, and it feels super action-packed and well thought out. I like how there are also real threats, and when someone dies, they stay dead, and it really doesn't feel like anyone is safe. It makes the stakes feel a lot higher, which is a problem that I had with the show. And while it can be edgy, like I said earlier, I still feel there's a certain level of self-awareness and still an attempt to treat these topics with a certain level of respect. Huey is also surprisingly progressive for an early 2000s comic character that many say is just edgy and uncaring. In one part of the story, he and Butcher are investigating the death of a gay kid and how it relates to Tech Knight, and while Butcher doesn't care about anything and only wants to see how it relates to supes and whatnot, and doesn't treat the kid like he's an actual person, Huey looks deeper into it and sees the look on the kid's face and almost relates to it in a way and sees how he's a person. Also, Huey's best friend in the comics is a transgender woman, so Now, I really don't have too many things to say, so this section will be kind of short. The first and main thing is, yes, at times the comics can be overly edgy when it's not really needed, and it can take away from certain parts. Although it doesn't really feel like this happens nearly as often as people like to say, and it can feel very over-exaggerated. The other thing I have trouble with is at certain points the story can feel like a bit slower, almost like it's going in circles. But that is also very rare, and like those moments are few and far between. And honestly, both those points, for me anyways, are heavily overshadowed by like the rest of the good parts of the series. Now, in this section, I'm going to bring up two of like the most common criticisms of this comic series that I've heard, and I'll make an attempt to refute or kind of debunk them based on my own personal opinion. So the first point is the one that I see the most, that the comics are edgy just for the sake of being edgy, and most of the time it doesn't have a purpose. Well, yes, like I said earlier, it can be edgy when not needed. I agree that does happen to a certain extent. I don't really feel like it happens all that much, and I feel like it doesn't detract from the comic as a whole, and more just can feel like a bit extra at times. Though I do think a lot of people just see, oh, it's edgy, and never try to look past that, which sucks because if you do look past the edginess at certain points, the parts where it can feel like extra, and look at the series for what it is, it's really, really good. And I feel like a lot of people just see it one-dimensionally and don't even try to bother to give it a chance, when honestly I strongly encourage you to, because you may have felt this way yourself and just seen certain bits of it and just saw like, oh, it's edgy for the sake of being edgy, but then you read it and you very well might enjoy it. Although I'm aware they're not for everyone, I don't think that you should take something at face value. I think you should give it your own research and give it your own time to form an opinion yourself and actually read the thing. For the second thing here, the comics don't treat certain topics with enough respect. Personally, after reading the comics, I think it does. Anytime there's a misogynistic, racist, or homophobic or such character, they aren't ever put in a spotlight or made to be someone we should look up to. They're always seen and treated as bad people, like that you shouldn't admire. The only decent characters are actual good people in the story, like Huey, actually make an attempt to convince people to be helpful and kind and treat everyone as equal and just be respectful in general. And those are the people that are actually made out to be good and the people that we want to look up to. I think I'm going to wrap this up here. Now that I've, gave my perspective on the comics, given my point, I highly recommend you check them out for yourself. I don't want you just to take my video as, oh, well, he said it's good, so they must be good, kind of thing, I want you to go read it because you might not like it, but you might very much like it. Like, it might be your favorite series of all time. Who knows? So I highly recommend you check them out, even if just to, shut your brain off and laugh at, haha, dumb superhero, pew pew pew, watch them all die. But, again, thank you to everyone who stuck around and watched this in full. This took a long-ass time to make. I've been working on this video for like a week with, writing, editing, and recording all this. So I really appreciate it. Consider maybe dropping a subscription or a like if you feel I deserved it. I'm going to have more of these kind of videos out at some point, and that's about it. So yeah.